Hi, everybody. No one is tuned in yet, so I'm saying hi, everybody, to everyone who is tuned in later. All right, so I'm doing an impromptu live stream. I wanted to do this a little earlier today, but it's Saturday, and it was kind of my day of working outside on some chores. But I'm going to show you a shot I did. Geez, when is this from? 2021, I think. So let's move the Cynthia chat assistant out of the way. And let's set this to playback file loop. There we go. So what do we have here? We have two shots. The first shot is a bunch of boxes. They're all moving on this track. Camera's moving, and every one of the boxes is tracked. So that's pretty interesting. And how did I do this? Well, I did this by doing a camera track first. Sorry, I'm tapping the keyboard. I hope that's not too annoying. And then this one, I had a what? You know what? I have to focus because I'm not showing you the entire shot. I should start over, and then I'm just going to start over, and we'll cut out that section. So let's go me screen right, me lower left. So I'm going to show you these shots. And here's the first shot. There are actually two shots, so we'll just play them. There we go. And there's the second shot. So on this first shot, let's go back to the beginning. And I'm just going to step through this so you can see what's going on here. So I did a camera track first, and we can see that the camera is moving. It's trucking right, or tracking right. And the boxes are all each individually tracked. Boy, man, that must have been a big pain in the neck to do, right? Of course it was. But it wasn't so bad because I was able to do it all with GeoH tracking again. So that's the first shot. And then the second shot, you see I have some rough geometry laid out because it's a lock off. Let's go forward a bit. So this shot's a lock off. The camera's not moving. I don't think it's moving. No, it's totally stationary. Well, actually, the rails of the conveyor belt are vibrating a little bit, but the camera's not moving. So in this case, this was all done for the United States Postal Service. Like I said, like 5 years ago, and all of the boxes are tracked, and these were all done with GeoH tracking. So I was like, you know, this might be a good example of something I could show people how to do. So let's close this. My dog is in the background chewing on a bone very loudly. And here's Cynthia. So I'm going to show you a little quick thing, a little trick that you can do with Cynthia. If you ever want to get rid of these, I frequently get rid of them before I do tutorials or live streams in this case. You can say clear scenes most recently used files, MRU files. And it says okay, but they're still there, of course. But let's go to the camera view, and then let's go back to the splash screen. Hey, look, they're gone. So that's just something that's kind of fun. No one is tuned into the live stream yet. I didn't really announce this. I didn't expect anyone. It's Saturday. I hope you're all having a nice weekend and not working. All right, let's exit this. Now let's start. I picked a shot. Here, I'll just show it to you. Ooh, let's turn the audio off. This was something I pulled off of Pexels. And camera's moving around. And we have our little boxes that this guy's setting on this conveyor belt. And I thought, yeah, this would be a great example to recreate that and show people how I did it. So let's make a new scene file. All right. So I'm going to do what I always do. I'm going to say script, version 0, and load movie or image sequence I want to track. I'm actually going to rename this one. I'm going to call this rename. Come on, where's the rename button? Here, I'll do it over here. I'll make it simple. We'll call it conveyor. Conveyor. Tutorials, come on. Why can't I rename that? I'm gonna go over here and rename it. V-E-Y-O-R. Conveyor. Right? Yeah, okay, there. That worked. And the reason I'm going to do this, because I had some other footage that I found that maybe I'll do this as well. And this is footage of a camera move, like a drone camera flying over some cows, but the ground has got some bumpiness to it and whatnot. And I thought, wouldn't it be fun to be able to track not just the XY position of the cows as they move across the ground, which is bumpy, but also the Z-axis or the Y-axis, the up-down axis. But that's a little more complicated. So let's just, for the time being, stick with the conveyor belt. All right, let's go back to Cynthia and see what it wants. It wants me to load the image sequence I want to track. We're going to call this, I'm going to rename that to conveyor. This is the conveyor 101. That's conveyor shot 1. So media plates. And this will be our footage. It's 30 frames per second. What is the resolution on this? 1280 by 720. This is like tiny footage. But fine. Synthesize has no problem tracking anything of any resolution. Oh, look, I have people. Please, tracking object and movement like car. You are genius. Thanks. Yeah, movement like car. That's good. The only problem with that, and I have tons of that like demo reel material. If you go to my demo reel, you'll see lots of it. You typically need a scan of the car and you need footage out on the road. I'm looking for some other footage to show this, because it's not just tracking a car. That's easy. That's going to be very much like what I'm doing today with these little things on this conveyor belt. But I want to show you some really hard car tracking. Like, I don't do easy shots. That's why you don't see me do silly, dumb, easy videos. But I try to make it easy. So yes to the car. And love from Argentina. I love Argentina. I've never been to South America in general. I have many friends there. I have to go. I've only traveled in Southeast Asia. Never in Europe, never in South America. It's unfortunate. All right, so let's proceed. And this will be like a car. These will be like little blue cars on a little conveyor belt. Since I save scene file name, so we're going to go to project files. We're going to make a new folder called Synthesize. Create, and I'm going to call that shot. Let's just, get rid of all this nonsense and just call it that track underscore V01, no, 00 dash 01. Like I said, a lot of this is usually done for me by the automation tools we have here, but okay, I'm going to do that. And now what is it asking me? It's saying, please, where's Cynthia? There we go. Please change shot images to denoised proxy media. We don't have any denoised proxy media. I didn't bother making any, so it's just going to be the same footage. So I'll just hit open again. And this shot is 2,970 frames long, but we're not going to use the whole thing. And now Synthesize is doing a bunch of stuff that the script automates. And I'm going to exit out of Cynthia. And let's take a look. Like, I think, you know, we really need, we're not going to track this whole thing. That's kind of not useful. Let's go up to about here, where that first thing on the conveyor belt starts turning the corner. And we're going to see just how easy it is to use GeoH tracking to track a whole bunch of things very easily. So I'm just going to, you know, if I hold down the Shift key and click and drag, it will reset my shot length. And you don't have to go to shot, edit shot to reset the shot length here. You can just Shift click and just drag it to, we'll do it to frame 700. That's our entire shot from 0 to 700. Let's track the camera first. This is a very low resolution shot, and you'll get these. I get these on, you know, big movies, big TV shows, where the footage is just not very good. And here's the other thing. Let's go into rotomasking, because this feature is really great. We'll click Mask ML. It's going to take a few seconds. Tracking object and camera in same project. Hee, I'm noob. Thanks for your time. Yeah, you're going to track an object and the camera in the same space. So that's exactly what we're doing. I'm using Mask ML to mask out the guy in the foreground. So let's add some object samples. Let's click there, here in his hair. I'm going to undo that, and I'm going to undo that. Let's click his hair first, and then click here on his neck. There, that's better. And we'll click there. How about there? There. That looks pretty good, but not a fan of any of this. Definitely don't want... This blue box is really confusing the Mask ML. Let's, I guess I'll just click in a few more places and see if that helps. There. So if you notice, as I'm doing this, it's like I feel like I'm adding way too many of these subtraction deals. And now the whole Mask ML thing is going to be fighting with itself. So if I go over here and I'm going to reselect that and then deselect these little bits that got picked up, you can see them there. It's not great. And even adding those, it just kind of doesn't, not a fan. So what I will do when it gets a little too unruly like this is I will add more Mask ML layers and kind of separate them out. But let's give this a shot and see what happens. Right current layer. Yeah, that looks good. And now it's gonna try and do its best to, let's see, no other comments, so I'll use this time to take a drink. That looks not bad. It looks pretty good. It looks like our mask is working okay. I don't hate that completely. Let's move this window over here, and let's move this over here. I don't think I can, no. I was hoping I could zoom in on that, but I cannot. It's okay. As with all auto tracks, I'm going to do a little bit of supervised tracking just to give SynthEyes a hint as to the general motion of things, which I highly recommend. You can just hit the auto button, but like I said, I do not recommend that. All right, let's do a couple of things. Let's take this spline here. That's our camera spline. Let's include all of this, and I'm going to hide that. So I'm going to turn off show this spline, and I'm going to lock that layer. And then layer 1, I'm also going to lock that layer. So that's already done for me. Yeah, that's great. Let's go to the trackers room. Always remember, when you've got mask ML layers or rotosplines or whatever, you can adjust your alpha channel here. That's just the display alpha channel. That's not the alpha channel of the spline itself, because these garbage masks only have 2 values, on and off. So they're either white or black. This is, I just had a hiccup. This is just a representation in the viewport. You can also show just the alpha. So you see we have some holes. Those aren't going to matter much. It's fine. All right, so that looks pretty good. Let's do some tracking. I'm gonna hold on the C key like I always do, and I'm just gonna drop a tracker, I don't know, right there. That's probably good. When you don't denoise your footage, and you can see this footage, little noisy, it's got compression artifacts, it's, you know, a little bit problematic. What you can do about that, here, let me close this mask ML window. What you can do about that is go into the image preprocessor, hit P, go into filtering, and blur the image slightly, like, you know, 2 pixels. Because that's not really going to affect your tracker, and it will knock down a lot of the noise. So maybe 1, maybe 1.5. Yeah, that's probably good. Little 3D equalizer comparison note here. With the image preprocessor in SynthEyes, when I make that change, it's now got to process all the images and cache them all in memory. So that's, you know, somewhat time consuming. But in 3D equalizer, it will only blur just in the search area. So that's kind of nice. I mean, and it doesn't have to cache it then. It just can cache the image once and then do these individual blurs while tracking. So it's either the search area or just the pattern, but I think it's just the search area. Anyway, let's hit the 5 key to keep that centered. I'm going to hold on the D key, just go forward. We're doing well. That's great. And it did a great job right up until about here. Yeah, I'm just gonna make a keyframe there. Let's set Keynote and Key Smooth to 8 and 8, which I would normally do in advance of doing all that tracking, but SynthEyes did a great job without, all the way up to frame 330. So now, because it's stopping on auto key, you see that here, track, stop on auto key. So if I'm auto keying on 8 frames, it's going to stop every 8 frames until it, just so you can make any adjustments. Let's tweak that. And there we go. Now we got it all the way to the end. When it really gets totally occluded, I'm going to shut off the tracker there and then just double check. So that tracker's good. And we need, if we're going to do some supervised tracking, we're going to need trackers in the foreground, midground, and background. That's from my perspective. From your perspective, that would be foreground, midground, and background. But you want your trackers spread out in space, in 3D space, not just on the 2D space of your screen. And you do that so that you can get parallax. So here's another tracker we can do right here. And this will give us parallax between the midground or foreground tracker on the conveyor belt and the background. I'm just tracking forward, holding down the D key with my finger. And then here it's going to go behind that. And yeah, no, that's no good. So let's, once it goes behind there, does it ever come back? I don't think it does. Let's just quickly look. Yeah, we never see that feature again. So let's just lock that tracker. So there were two trackers. What else can we track here? Remember, foreground, midground, and background. So, and let's make it easy on ourselves. I'm going to let Synthesize do most of the work. I don't want to track things like this bolt or nut or screw or whatever that is right there, like in the right at the bottom corner, because his arm keeps going in front of it. Okay, let's go. Let's keep working on this. I'm going to do another tracker. I think here, this will be good. This little intersection. And actually, I'm going to do it on the inside of that. And I'm going to do it on the inside because if you're ever tracking and you have things where you're seeing beyond in the background, like the corner of a building. So you have the whole skyline behind the building and it's moving, and you want to track the corner of the building, you might want to track something that's a little inside the corner of the building so that you don't have all that interference from things going by in the background. So just in case, that's why I made that choice here. Just holding down the D key again. Oh, no, that's no good. So right here, I'm going to make a keyframe there by just clicking right in this little thumbnail. If you click, it makes it pattern keyframe. I'm going to let it go forward a frame, and then you see it jumped onto something else. That's not the pattern we were searching, so let's turn the tracker off. And that looks good. So I'm going to lock that tracker. Just kind of scrub back and make sure that looks okay. Foreground, midground, and background. What else can we do? What else is way off, like in the distance there? I see like a smudge on the ground that goes off screen, comes back, goes off, comes back. Let's take a look at this. I'm going to make the search area just a little bit bigger. And you see what Synthesize is looking at in this window up here in the thumbnail. It's like a little fuzzy blob, but Synthesize is going to hold on to that really well. I'm going to hit the 5 key, and I'm just going to go forward until it shuts off, comes back, and when it comes back, I'm going to hold the Z key, Z, and let's do this. So AF, just to compare, make sure I'm still on target, and I am. Holding on the D key again, I'm moving forward. And now the tracker goes off screen once again. And I think after that, it doesn't come back. Oh, wait, it does come back. It comes back right here. And when it goes off, let's hold on the Z key. By the way, I'm gonna, because I use this footage, it's available on Pexels. I'll put a link below so that you can download the footage yourself and play along. If you want. Otherwise, you can not. That's okay. Let's shut off the tracker here. I really can't make a good guess as to where that is. Sometimes, I'll turn it back on. Sometimes if you have the tracker trails on, you can just kind of manually smooth it through that area where you couldn't see it. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. And here I'm having to put a keyframe on every frame because right now we're right up at the edge of the screen. Tracker's going to want to turn off. It won't turn off because I put a keyframe right there. So you see the tracker doesn't automatically turn off. I have to manually turn it off. That's the little button right below the thumbnail window. So let's see if that looks okay. It does, I think, except for that one little area. When you do that, it's good to keep your eye, like the peripheral vision, on the features around it and make sure that they don't jump around like this green line. I want to make sure the green line isn't jumping around on that frame where I can't really see the feature and I'm just kind of making it up. That looks pretty good. Okay, I don't think we see that feature again. Now it's behind the guy, even if it comes back, and I'm not going to try and get it again. All right, we're going to do one more. Plus, to lock the tracker. If you go to the hierarchy view, so I'll usually do that in a window, in a floating hierarchy view, like this. Where is the floating hierarchy view? Come on. Floating hierarchy view. Oh, I don't want that. I want the floating graph editor. I'll usually do that in a floating graph editor, not in the floating hierarchy view. And then I can see if the trackers have been locked. And these all have. So if you see the trackers not locked like that, then that's a problem. So all of your trackers should be locked. And that button is right here. It's also the plus key on the numeric keypad. All right, let's see what else we've got. I'd like to track something on screen left, just to kind of help synthesize along a little bit in the auto track. I might be going a little overboard here. And not only that, keep in mind, like, I get through these really fast. I can track shots super fast. And when it comes to supervised 2D tracking, I mean, I do these incredibly fast. But when I'm talking and trying to explain myself, I slow down a little bit. So let's track this corner up here. These trackers, probably not actually. I take that back, because this tracker's lifespan, if you look in the time view at the very bottom of the screen, you see that little blue section where the tracker's where that's its lifetime. That's not ideal. So let's undo that and undo the creation of it. Let's find something else to track down here, yeah, okay. I see something. So I'm auditioning features right now to track, and I'm going to track this wheel on that chair, I think, probably. I'm going to track it for, a bit longer, and then it's going to shut off, and that's fine. Does it ever come back? It may or may not. Oh, it does come back. Let's turn that back on. Hi, doggy. My doggy is here. One of my doggies is here. Two of my doggies are here. Let's hold on the Z key. Anybody want to see my doggies? Come here, Lula. Come here, Tippy. Come on up. Up. Yeah, hi. Hi, can everybody see you? Yes, I can see you. Oh my gosh. Hi, Tippy. Hey, Lula, come here. Come here. Come on. Oh, Tippy, you're hogging me up. Okay, it's great. I love that you're doing that. Your mom is going to feed you tonight, so go back upstairs. That was fun. Okay, let's finish tracking. All right. Okay, so if we have a keyframe there on frame 88, and then we have a keyframe there on 262. So let's make an adjustment on 262. If I go forward one frame to frame 263 and I hold down the shift key and I right click on key now, that blows away any errant tracking history that I don't want. So I'm just comparing these two positions, and I'm a little off here. So AF, 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 AF. That looks pretty good. That's good enough. So there. I don't think that ever comes back. I think now the camera starts, yeah, it works its way around his back. All right, good. So that tracker's got a decent lifespan. I'm gonna hit plus on that. I think we have plenty of trackers. It looks like we have 6 trackers. We can see that in the hierarchy view, which I have left up. On my other screen, but I usually leave that on that screen, just out of the way. Now that that is finished, let's go to the features room. Let's say advanced. Because our footage is so low resolution, let's make our small blip size. What do these mean? I haven't really ever discussed that. So let's look at small. And let me turn off the alpha channel depiction. So when I set the small blip size to 7, what does that mean? Well, it's set. Let's turn it up. And as I turn it up, you see it basically is just doing a blur. So let's set it to 12. Like I said, this is low resolution footage. The other thing I'm going to do is turn on auto re-blip. So when I make a change, you're going to start seeing where these blips are detected. Let's turn this down. Let's turn all the way down to like 8 and make this 12. So these are the blips that it's detecting. Blips are not trackers. They're just the features. So, hi Benjamin. Nice to see you. Let me do blips all frames. Just in review, we're doing an auto track on the camera. We're doing a semi-auto track because I'm doing the steps that the auto tracker would do, but I'm just doing them by hand. So once I've done this blipping, I'm going to go peel all. Our footage is like 700 frames long, so I'm going to make the maximum tracker count really high, like 700. And I'm going to say peel all. And let's look at display, and let's turn off the, let's clear all blips first, because we don't need the blips, which is right, it's a button up here, there you go, I found it. Let's turn off the image, so show image off. And when I do that, I'm gonna go back to rotomasking and turn this spline back on. So I'm gonna say show that spline, just so we can see where the frame lines are. Go back to features. And I'm just gonna look and see, like, these were the blips. So that looks pretty good, right? Like I'm seeing a lot of features there, but then it just kind of, they're none here. And as I look further, I'm thinking, let me turn on show image. Sure enough, there are trackers that have been detected on our little boxes. I don't want those because those are going to interfere with our camera track. So I'm going to get rid of those. We're going to need some trackers on our boxes, but we're not going to need those now. So I'm hit the 5 key to make it not auto center on the trackers. What is that tracker? So I suggested a feature that the mat be dilatable so that you could expand the mat so it wouldn't pick up these things on the edges. Hopefully there will be some pleasant surprises in the future regarding that. So let's get rid of that tracker. So we have a bunch of trackers here. So this one on the edge, yeah, nope, these are no good. Okay. Let's get rid of these. Great. Let's make sure there are no other ones. Great. We're going to need more trackers in order to pull off the camera track. But I want to get rid of the ones that are going to interfere. So that has to happen first. All right. Could we have made roto masks to mask this stuff out first? Yeah, of course we could have. So it's just a matter of, you know, where do you want, what do you want to do? Do you want to make those roto masks first, or do you want to go through the pain that is deleting the trackers that are erroneous or bad? Let's get rid of these. I don't really trust the ones that are on the rollers themselves. And we don't really need them. We may have to do a little bit more manual tracking to get our camera track, but that's fine. Like I said, that goes fast. Synthesize is super fast at that. Yeah, we'll get rid of that too. There. Yeah, it just keeps picking these up, so. Probably would have been easy to make some really basic roto shapes that covered these areas to not pick these up. I just didn't think to do it. Okay, there's that. Let's keep going. We're up to frame 560 or so, so let's get rid of this one. Keep going. And we'll keep going. Almost to the end. We're almost there. Don't know about these. Don't know if I trust that or that. This one I definitely don't trust because I can already see it's like wiggling around funny. But that's pretty good. I mean, we'll definitely be able to solve this camera almost immediately. We just need a little bit more. So let's go back to advanced. And we're going to say, so that's small. And if you say big, it's going to show you that this is the 12 pixel blur. Let's do one more pass on this. And we're going to call this, we're going to say this will be 16 and 20. But because I don't want to deal with I don't want to deal with those, like manually deleting all those little boxes anymore. I'm going to go to like here to the end, and I'm going to draw out a box like this. This is going to be a garbage mat box. And I'll just show you how these splines work. So these are garbage masks to mask out the blip, like when you peel all. Okay, let's figure this out. Let's go back like this many frames, and here are the things you can do. We can, if you click here, you can move the whole spline around, and you'll see that all of these become highlighted. My colors are going to be different from yours because I have customized my user layout, but they won't be terribly, you know, you'll see. If you make a spline and you have key all CPs, control points, if any, and so that when I grab this control point in the middle, it will make a keyframe for all of those, for everything that is keyframeable. You can also hold down the control key and you can rotate the spline, or you can hold down the the shift key will add another point, but we don't want to do that. If you hold down, I think control and alt, no, that's not it. No, that's not it either. Hold on, I'm just figuring this out. Control and here, let me zoom in on this. I don't know why we're looking at that so small. There's a way to rotate this, and I just don't remember because I have cognitive issues. But you can scale the whole thing, and you can rotate it, and command? No, that's not it. That's not it. Oh yeah, here we go. So command control on a Mac allows me to rotate and scale. I don't know what it is on a PC. You'll just kind of have to figure it out. But that's fine. Where are we? We're at frame 600. I'm looking at my timeline, trying to figure out where I am. There we go. I made a keyframe on 600 and I made a keyframe on 590. I don't really want that keyframe there. I don't want to delete the layer. I want to delete the keyframe. But whatever, that's fine. Anyway, let's go back a little bit more. Ooh, this tracker, that's no good. Let's delete that. Let's move that down. Let's hold on command and there we go. So I'm not too precious about this. I'm just kind of moving it around to make this. Delete that. Maybe that was more trouble than it was worth. You know what? I think that was more trouble than it was worth. This is why I sometimes think that, you know, adding splines and whatnot is just harder than deleting the blips or the trackers that got peeled. So let's run this again. Features, advanced. So now we're doing 16 and 20. And we're going to go blips all frames. This happens pretty fast. Now I can go peel all. And let's see if it picked up any more trackers than it did before. It still didn't pick up any in those last frames, but when you switch these to larger numbers, 16 and 20, you'll see that when you hit peel all, let's clear all the blips. You'll see that when you hit peel all, the trackers that it makes are bigger. So these are just bigger trackers. Let's get rid of those. Let's get rid of that one. Let's get rid of these. If you have any questions as I'm doing any of this, please put them in the comments or in the chat and I will answer them. As I said in my last video, I would like to make this more interactive. So it's not just me sitting here in a room that my dogs occasionally visit. All right, let's keep going. Let's delete these. Let's delete all of these. Definitely delete this stuff. And that and this. Again, the dilate, I really wish I could show you that right now. Let's get rid of that. Let's get rid of these. This. Definitely that. You can just sometimes pick up on trackers that are just bad. Let's go into advanced again and switch our camera view back to normal. It's sometimes a little easier to see though. Now that I'm looking at this, if I switch this back to small, these are just easier to see. Maybe I'll leave it like that. Yeah. For the time being, I'm going to leave it at small, only to make it easier to spot the bad trackers. Let's look up by his neck. Yeah, see, this one's bad. That's no good. Those are all okay. This one's no good. Bad, bad trackers. When you're doing this and you're not distracted by doing a live stream, this goes a lot faster. And I probably could have even done that, what's it, that, you know, what I just said earlier, that garbage mask. The other thing I could do, if we look at this in normal view, by the way, and you see these bright blue things, boy, gee, wouldn't it be nice if we could go into the image preprocessor and pull a key and had compositing tools in here for like keying green, blue, and other colors and isolating color and whatnot. That would be great. I would love that. And if it's not going to be there, you could, I guess, put it in the features room. There is the ability to pull green screen and do green screen stuff elsewhere in Synthesize. I just never thought that it was in the right place. All right, let's keep going. All right, let's delete all this junk and march our way forward, and more to delete. And there's a little short-lived tracker. This is another tracker that should never have been picked up because it was right on the edge of our mat. Okay, here we go. Woof. Ugly. So kind of get our mouse under control here. No. I'm not being very careful with the mouse. No, stop. God. There we go. Just delete these and these. Okay. No more questions. Nobody has any questions? You can't possibly. This has to be super boring. And that is why at the beginning of every video, I put a, if you're, here, hold on, I'll activate it right now. So, full screen camera. I should have done this at the very intro. I should have said, if you're watching a replay of this live stream, I recommend playing it at a higher speed. So I had meant to put that at the beginning, but yeah, if you rewatch, just play this at like 1.5 times speed, or even just skip ahead, because these are not meant to be full-blown tutorials. All right, let's keep going. Delete some more junk. Get rid of that. Great. We're more than halfway done. Okay. Let's get rid of this stuff. And get rid of this stuff. I want to kill the stuff that I know is going to cause problems. I know there are other ones in here that are going to cause problems, but those should be picked up by the cleanup trackers script that ships with Synthesize. So, but you have to kind of get rid of all the major offenders first. Otherwise, your track will be just totally wrong, and when you try and run that cleanup bad tracker script, it's going to pick up many more false positives. There are going to be a lot of trackers that are like, those were actually good trackers, but because the rest of your track was bad, they'll get picked up. All right. This is meticulous and dumb and boring and time consuming, but it's okay. I actually enjoy this stuff. I will typically be like I will leave movies on that, like favorite movies, and play them on monitor 2, just so I can revisit them. Or I'll watch really dumb TV shows. And I don't mean dumb TV shows like Housewives of whatever Community. I mean like badly done sci-fi shows on streaming networks. All right, get rid of that, get rid of that. Kill these in here. Those are probably no good. We're almost done. We're almost to the end. Don't trust that. Don't like that. There we go. And so right here in this whip panty area, there aren't any trackers. So let's just what I don't understand is my graph here. We need to scale our graph so that we can see that we run out of trackers starting right about here. And so for that, I'm just going to add some supervised trackers. And I'm going to do it right here. I'm going to go C, click, right there. I'm going to make this tracker bigger, or the search area bigger, and I'm just going to track to the end. That's good. That one's excellent. Stop my alarm. What else do we have here? I can track like this corner. I'm not sure if it goes back off screen though at the end. Oh no, that's good. So those are 2 trackers that should cover that area. We could track backward, I guess. I don't really like doing that though, so I'm not going to. But I will track this feature right here. Now, the thing we have to be careful about is that this feature looks a lot like the features around it. So I'm going to change our search area to be much smaller, and I'm going to kind of walk us through and make sure that it did stay on target. That's good. What else do we got? Here, this will be good. This one will work. For that, we're going to just change our pattern size a little smaller. Lock that tracker. Let's see if there are any points on the ground that might be good. This is probably a good one. Oh, you little monster. Let's click there. 5 key keeps it centered, and then I'm going to tap through. So I'm just tapping 1 frame at a time. Tracker automatically shut off earlier when it raced off screen. I'm just needing to do a little bit of hand holding to get it through that space, this spot. Remember, this footage is 720. What is it? 1280 by 720. So really, very low resolution footage. That feature disappears, and I don't think it comes back in a way that is meaningful. But here's a black spot. We can definitely hang on to that. Lock that. And if we look at our graph down at the bottom, I'll right click and zoom in on the graph. Those last few frames, we now have a little yellow. I'm going to just do 1 more tracker, I think. Like, there are some features in here that should not, that should have worked, but apparently it didn't like that. Let's do 1 more over here. Yeah, that'll be a good one. So C, holding down the C key, create a tracker. I'll track to there. And I said one more, but I'm not going to do one more. I'm going to do actually a couple more. How about right here? Spreading out my trackers in 2D and 3D space. Didn't like that. For some reason, it jumps right there. So let's make a keyframe right there. And then when it comes back, I'm just gonna hand hold it through there. Yeah, that's good. Okay, so we just held its hand to get through that spot. Let's put another one here. Oh boy, yeah. So there's something about the footage that just kind of freaks SynthEyes out a little bit. Let's go back here. Go 1, 2. There we go. Keyframe, keyframe, keyframe. And then it shut off automatically before. So I'm gonna hit the plus key. Sorry, not plus key. I'm gonna hit the E key for enable and get us through there. Oof. Boy, I really thought that would be a great feature to track, but I guess not. Because I thought it would stay on. I just didn't. So when I'm auditioning trackers, I usually look for it to make sure it's active for the time that I need. Okay, this is going to be good enough, I think. It's got like 3 frames of green at the end. Everything else is indicating that the track is going to be good. Let's make that there. I'm going to go to the solver room. I am going to select automatic. It's already selected. Undirected. And fixed unknown. Let's just hit go. And take a drink. Our initial HPIX error is around 1.52 HPIX. That's pretty good. Sometimes when you have this many trackers, because it's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of trackers, the solving will take a little bit longer. It's also 600 frames, so the solving may take a little bit longer. And if you have some trackers in there that are like high error trackers, like, you know, things that if we missed anything that we should have deleted, it can make this take much longer. All right. Oh, this is... I always love it when this happens. So it's been 1 minute. Ah, there we go. Track is done. All right, so all of these red trackers, these are high error trackers that are problematic. On a shot like this, I will typically just delete them. So I'm just gonna hit the delete key. And I'm gonna switch my solution technique to refine, and then I'm gonna hit go. And it should solve faster. So good. So all of those trackers that were high error trackers, like that one right there, and let's delete that too. All right, so, you know, a lot of people, a lot of newcomers to SynthEyes will look at a track like this and they'll be like, everything's all weird and like, why is it not oriented correctly? Well, it's because SynthEyes doesn't have any idea like where the world is. But it's easy to fix. We're just going to hit the whole button in the 3D room. We just went to the 3D room. We're going to hit the whole button right there. Camera is now selected. I am going to rotate the whole world. And I'm going to rotate the whole world this way. And let's look. We can kind of make we can see that the conveyor belt point cloud, align that with like the front back axis. And you can start seeing, okay, so there are some trackers that we know are probably solved incorrectly, like this tracker. We know that's probably not solved correctly. View, show image. Let's right click on Pan 2D. and look and see where is that. So if we look down here at our little our timeline, you see little black tick marks of like where the keyframes are for that tracker, for that tracker's position. So its lifetime is pretty short, and it's right there. If I hit the 5 key to center it, that tracker is... Okay, so our world space is probably too small. So the clipping plane, it's probably not displaying that tracker, but we'll definitely be able to see it in the tracker's view. All right, let's see what we got here. So yeah, that tracker is goofy. That's no good. Let's get rid of that. Looks like this tracker here too is like floating around in space. What is that? Delete that. Let's go back into the 3D view. Let's grab another tracker that's probably wrong. Let's fix that clipping plane issue, and that can be fixed with the world size. So for that, let's switch the layout to quad perspective, and we'll just turn up the world size. And oh, you see, they just popped on. It's right there. So I'm going to shrink the world size, and oh, it's gone. But now if we increase the world size there's the tracker. So that just basically means that the world size, that kind of defines where the clipping planes are. So you may need to do that in order to see where that feature is. Now, I don't think that feature is in the correct location. It's in the right space. Because if we look at this tracker over here, lasso trackers, and I select the one on the bottom by the, what do you call it? The wheel of that chair. That's also probably not in the right space. But these are trackers that don't really have a lot of lifespan. So you see it sliding a bit. So that's not okay. I'm not a big fan of that. All right, so let's start cleaning up this track a bit to make it just be better. First thing we're gonna do is go to track, clean up trackers. Let's go bad frames, disable, fix. And you'll see it delete a ton of trackers. Let's undo that. And then when I'm gonna run it again, script. Actually, no, sorry. Track, clean up trackers. Just keep your eye on this window. Bad frames, disable, fix. It just deleted a ton of trackers. So let's go to the 3D room again. You can hit Shift G, that will resolve. Now our HPix has dropped to 1.05 pixels. 5 key to unlock that. So the camera track looks pretty good. I can't complain too much. I can always complain. I'm going to delete these trackers, I think, just because they're questionable. When you solve, you'll notice the world size reverted back to 500. Let's keep that at 600. Or let's make it like 800 for the time being. I've heard it asked that be lockable. So you can just define it and keep it there. And there are ways of dealing with that. But the easier way to deal with it is to basically just pick a few points in your scene and set up some constraints, and then you can deal with that better. Anyway, we'll talk about that sometime. Let's move this up a bit. Let's take a look again. Rotate that a little as well. And I think this is going to be fine. That's going to be a fine camera track. So we're going to do a little bit more cleanup. Track, let's coalesce closest in 3D. Sorry, no, I didn't want that. I want track, coalesce nearby trackers, not in 3D. I don't want them to be only with non-overlapping frame ranges, so I'm turning that off. And I'm gonna hit examine. So there are 107 trackers. They're basically in the same place. And I can coalesce those. And so now it just turns those into single trackers. So now if I hit Shift G, there we go. It has resolved the scene. The error went up by like 0.03 pixels, but that's okay. We're gonna go track, clean up trackers. So I do this a few times, and I can afford to do this because I have so many trackers in my scene. So I've cleaned up those. I'm gonna hit Shift G again. And now my HPix error is 0.964, so it's under 1 pixel. So I do this a little iteratively, and you could script this. You could do this in Cynthia, and you could write a script that said, just do these steps over and over and over. So let's go coalesce nearby trackers. Click examine. There are 26 trackers this time. So we're going to make those into single trackers. Let's deselect the trackers that it selected. Why can't I deselect these? That's a little strange. Okay, Shift G. And now it's 0.97. Let's do one more. Cleanup trackers. You can't do this too many times, because if you do it too many times, it will start killing good trackers. So let's look at this. Hit the 5 key. And so that's a tracker that's on the floor there. I'm not entirely convinced that's worth keeping. What about this one? This is a much shorter lifespan. Yeah. It's not really, it's a little slippy slidey. So Shift G. Whenever you delete a tracker, you should resolve the scene. Hey, and you'll see now our HPix has dropped to 0.8942, so that's pretty good. We're going to do one more step, which is going to be to calculate the lens distortion that's going to be radial fourth order. This should be, for spherical lenses, this should be the default, not classic. So I'll set that to calculate. I'm going to set, that's just quadratic distortion, I believe. And I'm just going to calculate just C2. So let's hit go. Doesn't seem like a giant improvement. So when you look at a number like this, like 0.003, so tenths, hundredths, thousandths. So we're changing the distortion by 3 thousandths of, yeah, that's not, that doesn't really even seem worth it. So I'm going to cancel that. Let's try one more. I'm going to add C4 as well. And these are coefficients for the lens distortion. Let's turn off the image again, just so you can see what I'm looking at here. So you see the lens grid here. And if I dial these up, you can see, so that's the quadratic distortion. And here is here's a C4. So if you use these in unison with one another, you can create like bow tie type distortions, and it'll be able to capture more of the distortion of the lens. I'm going to zero those out again. I'm going to turn them both on to calculate. Let's turn the image back on. And I'm going to hit Shift G. Yeah, we see a little bit of that bow tie kind of action. The HPix is 0.8475. It was 0.85. That's really not, 3/100ths of a pixel is not. So this lens is pretty flat, is what I'm saying. This is a pretty flat lens, and you probably will get away with not even using the lens distortion. So we're not even going to bother with it. We're not even going to calculate distortion. We're just going to leave it. And we're going to say that's good enough. I love it. All right. So now that we have this track, let's try and put in, let's try and figure out where our conveyor belt is. We can do that by, so we have some trackers here. Let me resize this window. We have some trackers here that are, no, 5 key was selected. So where is that? There is the center, and there's a I should be able to see feedback for that on screen, but I can't. But that's fine. I just forget where it is. It's fine. But I'm going to select a few things here. Like, I think, what's that tracker? I think that's in the distance. Yeah, this is a bad tracker actually, because that tracker is tracking the intersection of this conveyor belt with that leg of the conveyor belt. So that's actually a bad tracker. So let's hit Shift G, resolve that. Okay. Like I said, every time you do that, every time you disable a tracker and like, you know, want to try some different things, it's all right. How do we want to do this? There are some other trackers that are intersections. This is bad. That's a bad tracker. All of these are bad. Bad trackers. Because they're tracking the intersection of something that's happening in the background with something that is in the foreground. And I didn't catch those earlier. So what you can do, if you hold on the control key and you circle these trackers, you can select the 3D points, and you can lasso select them so you can get rid of more at once. So I'm going to delete all of those. Those are all bad. And following my own advice, I am going to, let's delete those. I'm going to Shift G, just, you have to keep resolving. So we're back at 0.85 pixels, HPix. This is how you keep your solves good. Yeah, so that's pretty good. These trackers here, these are in the background on the other side of the conveyor belt, or the conveyor rollers. It's not really a belt. Not entirely convinced that's good. All right. These are pretty good. Track, coalesce nearby trackers. Examine 22 trackers, Shift G. Our error went up a little bit, but that's okay. Let's look at, I think like these two trackers should probably be the same, but I'm going to delete both of them because I'm not a huge fan. Anyway, but you get good at this stuff. All right, Shift G, that's great. Now what we want to do, I said this an hour and a half ago. I said, now we want to find like where our conveyor belt is. So let's put a plane in here. There are ways to do this in Synthesize. Like for example, you can use, there's a mesh tools. You can say add cards, and if you select like a bunch of these, Synthesize will basically try and like come up with a card that is the average of all of the trackers you selected. With add cards, I believe I can select the trackers manually. Maybe not. You may have to drag. That's unfortunate. Nevertheless, we can just drag out a plane right here. Like this. And now we can start seeing like where our, you know, the orientation of things may need to be. Let's first click hole. If you right click, you can say 3D. Hole effects meshes is off, which is what we want. So that when you start rotating this around, you can start seeing how everything lines up to the mesh without the mesh moving. The other thing you can do, and this is probably my favorite way of doing this, is we're in a 3D viewport here, and using the pinning tool. So if we select, we have the camera selected, we can say, let's see here. How do we do this? I select, this always throws me off. Like I want to be able to say create edit pins and then switch this to what am I doing? Am I moving the mesh, the camera, the object? I always forget. Nothing can help me, but I'm pinning the mesh right now. I don't want to pin the mesh. I want to pin the whole scene. So I can now keep dropping pins on the mesh. So we'll drop another pin there. And we'll drop another pin here. Nope, not that. This blue gizmo that allows you to reshape and resize the primitive objects, I want a hide button for that. Because of what just happened. Because I just tried to click here to make a pin and it clicked on that instead. And that's just annoying. So here's what we're doing. So I'm moving this over here. And you notice that when I do this, the whole scene moves, which is great. I want that. And I'm going to move this over here. I can drop another pin on here and drag that down like this. And, you know, this is a fast way to kind of get things lined up quickly. If I move to a different frame, like in here, you lose all your pins. But, you know, you can create more new pins and it's just going to keep removing the whole scene, which is what we want. I don't feel like we're around enough because we want, like, all of those rollers. Well, you can see that they have like a vanishing point if you drew a line that extended forward. So we know the lens is correct, and we can say in the pinning tool, FOV is fixed, so that's the lens. The width of the object is fixed, the depth is fixed, so everything's fixed. It's just we're only translating and rotating the whole scene. So we should be able to make adjustments like this, and eventually we can, get things lined up properly. Our pins are going to kind of be off at some point, and you can say null out all errors, and it will null out all the errors so that you can continue to wiggle your pins around and get things lined up. But this is pretty decent, I think. We'll get that up a little higher, and we'll get this one down a little lower. So I think that's probably a good space. Like our orientation is pretty good here. It's not perfect. We still need some adjustments, like if I just drag that all over. Okay, now we can start looking at actual trackers and saying, okay, where in 3D space is that? Let's turn off hole here. Let's find out where is that tracker. Let's turn off the pinning tools. Go right there to that tracker. So that tracker, our mesh should be undo. Sorry, I'm just right clicking on pan duty, or hold on, lock. There we go. If I click on that blue gizmo that I was complaining about earlier, I can bring that over to near where that tracker is. So that's the tracker. And if we hit hole again and we can drag all of them, no, I don't want to rotate, I want to translate. We can move this whole thing down. And you can also take your individual trackers if you want to like line something up to something else. Turn off hole. I'm just going to click on this right here. You can change that tracker color to anything else you want. And then once you see that it's different colors in these viewports, it just becomes easier to line things up. So we know that that tracker, that bluish colored tracker that we just made is right there in space. And we want our rollers to be a little lower than that. Click hole again and just lift this up slightly like that. And we know our mesh. Let's turn off hole. We know our mesh, which we can just click on here. And we grab that little blue gizmo, which I want to be able to turn off. I can line that up there. I feel like the whole scene needs to be rotated. If I hold down the control key, I get finer control. I just want to line those up to the rollers. And let's look and see if now it's staying locked together. Yeah, that's okay. We're not totally on target. Almost. But I think that's going to be good enough for what I'm doing here. And let's take this guy and let's change the geometry itself. So for that, you can dial these numbers down, make it like 6 and 20. So they're square-ish looking in this viewport. If this doesn't work, it's it'll be okay. If it doesn't totally work out, I think it's going to be fine, because we can make adjustments to all this stuff later. So I'll make that a little bigger so that it goes to that edge. Great. Now, what are we going to do now? Let's change the color of this to some other, like, something gray. I'm going to make a box, and I'm going to put it right here. This box is supposed to be sitting on that roller grid. So let's line this up. I think our grid needs to be longer. So let's make it be all the way to there. And we'll take our box, which is this horrible fuchsia color. Let's make it like light blue. And it's got a gizmo underneath that you can't see because it's interpenetrating that mesh below. But if you're going to put a mesh on it, I would like to be able to just click and drag around make adjustments like that gizmo allows you to do, but only on planes. I think that there's a hotkey. I just don't remember. Anyway, select that, and let's shrink this down. Now, here's what you could do. We're going to use the pinning tool again. Let's bring that up. And this time, create edit pins. I'm going to put a pin here. And I'm going to say pin the mesh. So that's the default. So if I click there on pin the mesh. No, not on that mesh. Right there. And here on this mesh. Actually, hold on. Control click allows you to delete pins. So hang on. I have to think this through a little bit, like playing chess. Like, what are my moves? I'm going to put pins down here first. Those are the first pins I'm going to put. And then I'm just going to grab one. I'm going to put one pin there, and I'm going to shrink it down. But you'll notice that height is fixed, depth is fixed, width is fixed. I don't want that. I want height is fixed off. So height changes. So now I can actually change the height of this thing. But I'm also changing the orientation of it. I don't really want to do that. I'm just going to go forward one frame and ignore the pins for the time being. I'll just dial, like I'm mousing up here and I'm just dialing down the height. And we may use the pins in a second to tweak. Let's rotate that around. If you mouse over the gizmo and you hold down the control key, you can make modifications thusly. All right, what else do we have here? I'm gonna want to move this forward just a bit, like that. And I want to increase, not the height. Pretty good. I want to increase, not the width, I want to increase the length just a little. There we go. And I still think we need to kind of get the rotation a little more correct. But we're going to use so frustrating. Yeah, I think that's probably good. All right. Plus, let's move this over a little. And let's shrink it down just a little bit more like I did earlier. All right, good enough. Now, what we can do is, I'm going to adjust these, and I'm going to adjust this to make it a little nicer to look at. We can look at the GeoH tracker, and I'm going to bring up the GeoH toolbar right here. That GeoH toolbar can also be activated right with the toolbar. So I can turn that on and off there too. I'm going to turn off mesh. I'm going to turn off pinning. And with the GeoH toolbar, I'm going to create a GeoH object for this box. So I'm going to drop that, shift click. And right now, when I do this, it's just making it in the middle of the box. Now, you might want to be in like quad perspective view when you do this so that you can see where your GeoH object, your parent object, is being created. So I'm going to undo that, and I'm going to shift click again. Nope, not on the gizmo. But I'm shift clicking again, and I'm kind of putting it in the middle of my box, right there. That looks good. So now with GeoH on, we can just, we don't want to solve the z-axis. Actually, we do want to solve the z-axis. We do want to solve the x-axis. We don't want to solve the y-axis, so we're going to leave y locked, and we're going to unlock this and this. And we do want to solve the pan, and we do want to solve the tilt. Do we want to solve the roll? Is there any roll? I don't think there really is. So I'm going to leave that locked too. Technically, I probably could leave tilt locked, because I don't think it really does much there. But I am only solving the X, Z, and pan. And they're unlocked. If I unkey those and then I hit key, then we're good. So we have a pattern keyframe here. So the whole box is being used, the geometry is being used as the pattern. And if I track forward, within the camera move, our box is just moving. Now, there's a problem here because this other box comes in front of our box, and then it goes crazy. So just like a 2D tracker, it's going to go crazy when you have occlusions, but you can see that Synthesize is just tracking the box without any user interaction for at least the first 40 or 50 frames. And that's pretty cool. But there are ways of dealing with this. And the way that I dealt with it to do that shot for the Postal Service with all of these boxes was not to use the GeoH tracker in terms of just using the geometry as the tracker. Oh, and I also set the that was kind of goofy. I just realized that I started the track on frame 1 and not on frame 0. So we'll notice that, like, I'm going to reset the keyframe on frame 0. I'm going to turn off X, Z, and pan there. And then I'm going to right click on these and turn off the keyframe there. So that's going to get rid of the keyframe on frame 1. And you have to look down in the, if I right click here and zoom in, we have a keyframe for something on frame 1. And there really shouldn't be anything. This is where the GeoH track tools are, they've always been a little confusing. And the only way you can see this stuff is if you go to Window, Floating Graph Editor, and then you have to dig in a little bit and go Cameras and Objects. So we want Object 01. And then you look at the GeoH tools. So this is like GeoH Effect Parent that you can keyframe. But here's Solve Velocity. Let's turn that off. And then you've got Solve Path, Seed Path. And let's zoom in a little bit here. And we can start seeing, like, you just have to investigate, like, where are your keyframes. So our active locks, there's only one active lock up there. Let's go reset time axis and reset all channel zooms. What else do we have here? GeoH error, we don't need to see that. GeoH keyframes, that we can take a look at. Effect parent, nope. Soft lock weights, no keyframes there. So you just have to kind of do a little bit of a like search for, you know, what are you looking for? And joint variables. So now I'm going to delete all those keyframes, but you really can't because you could select them. These are the joint variables. These are not the solved path. So if you look at solved path and not the joint variables, and you select everything, then you can delete the solved path. So that's good. Let's look back at the joint variables. Now they're gone because they're dependent on the path. All right, what else do we have here? Let's zoom back out, and now we can start seeing that our path just kind of keeps going. Okay, seed path, nothing there. Nothing in the joint variables, joint velocities, no, lock values. And so I'm on a search right now to determine where that keyframe is here on frame 1. What I've discovered also is that I sometimes have to go in and deactivate and reactivate all of these locks. And there you go. Did you see that? So that lock, so I had to activate and deactivate all those locks just to get rid of that keyframe, just because I'm a neat freak. But I just like to be able to keep everything under control. Anyway, we don't want to actually have SynthEyes be solving this using the GeoH solver for right now, because we're going to do a little bit of supervised tracking. So back in the hierarchy view here, oops, not the folder cam, I want the camera 1. I'm going to shrink up those trackers. I'm going to select my object so that it is the active tracker host. I'm going to go back into the trackers room. The object is the active tracker host. Let's hide the box. Let's hide the plane. What I'm going to do, and this is important, and I think we can probably end this tutorial after I do what I'm about to show you, and then we can pick it up later. But everything I did up to this point is all crucial. You have to have a camera track. It's got to be good. It's got, you have to have everything oriented correctly if you're going to have an object within the space of a camera to track. So we're going to add a tracker, and this tracker, you're going to notice, is going to go... Uh-oh, no, that's not right. Object 1, object 1. Dogs are going crazy. Have the object selected there. I'm going to hit C and make a tracker. There. So tracker 1417 is now on the box, on the blue box. Let's make a couple adjustments here. All right, great. So now I am going to manually track this. Let's set this to 4 and 4. So 5 key, we're just tracking. And then when you get to here, I'm going to say by hand. So I'm going to make a keyframe there on the pattern, and I'm switching it to by hand here. And then when it comes back, I'm moving the tracker up. I'm going to make a pattern keyframe. I'm going to turn off by hand. So what I've done there is I've made the tracker track by hand through that region. And that by hand is, let's set it, let's make a keyframe there. Set this to by hand again. And then we're going to move it up here. And so what you're telling SynthEyes is that that tracker is, when it's in these frames, in here, SynthEyes is just interpolating the keyframe. And then here we're going to turn off by hand so it starts tracking again. Now those trackers aren't going to be great, but it's going to be pretty good. So let's make a keyframe here and then by hand again. And the reason that we're doing that by hand business is so that we can get through these areas. And we're going to have to make adjustments because it's off target here. I mean, I know that this thing is like way over there. So we're going to have to make adjustments in those areas. And then I'm going to discuss something that is a feature I have asked for again and again and again and again and again. And everyone's tired of hearing me talk about it. But I've turned off by hand, but it immediately jumps off target. So I've got to, hand hold it through here. Let's go nudge it over a little. There we go. Yeah, this is a little bit of a problem. I'm going to shrink the tracker down here. This is keyframeable. I'm going to right click to get rid of that keyframe. And I'm going to right click on these to get rid of those. I'm actually going to right click on this too to get rid of that, and then go back to the previous keyframe. Now I'm going to make the pattern size smaller. And I'm going to even make the search area a bit smaller, just so it stays on target better. Yeah, that's better. That's much better. That's better tracking. All right, keyframe by hand again, and then when the tracker comes back, here, I'm going to Z click into that position. So all this time in here, the tracker is way off target, but it's active and it's being keyframed by hand. So let's put a keyframe down there. And this is where the graph editor comes in handy. So back to that floating graph editor. And when we look at that tracker, right now we're looking at the object, but let's look at this tracker. And let's turn on, not the velocity. I never care about the velocity. I never care about the figure of merit. I only care about, that's what FOM stands for, by the way. Only care about the U position and V position. Let's turn off the colors here. We don't need that. So then you can start seeing, like, the curvature of the graph, and no, that's going to be way off target. So if I'm here in the middle of this and I just start grabbing and moving around, like now I can start seeing, generally where I should be, basically. And then when I get to here, there appears to be a keyframe there. That's strange. Why is that? I don't want a keyframe there. So anyway, I'll delete those. Goodbye, keyframes. And then the graph doesn't update until you actually retrack, because Synthesize is keyframing by hand. So let's get to that frame. You're on target again. Go forward, we're on target again, and then we're going to turn off by hand. And then let's make an adjustment, kind of tweak it into position. And so now, good, there we go. Beautiful, love it. And we've gone way off target. I'm going to shift right click on key now to blow away that errant tracking history. I'm going to make a keyframe there. I'm going to adjust that right into place. I'm going to hand keyframe it back into location there. And now the tracker is picking up. So it's just a lot of motion blur, and it's these are difficult tracks. Now, this is typical of what you'd see if you were working on a movie or TV show. This is just the tracking. All right, let's go back to that keyframe. Let's go there. Let's go back a few more. Retrack. I'm tapping the space bar to track forward to make sure the tracker is just staying on target. And we're going to be done with this tracker soon, because we're now getting to the edge of the frame-ish. We're getting to the end of our frame count. Okay. Oh, look at that. So right here, if we look at our little box, I'm shift right clicking on key now, I'm blowing away that tracking history. I'm going to make a keyframe, making another, and I'm just going to hand keyframe this through here. But you can see that the box has kind of hit a little dip in the roller, so it's like tilting forward. And when I come back to this in a like a part 2 of this video, which is already incredibly long, so whatever, it's like what, 6:53, so it's been like an hour. Let's keep going. It's been longer than an hour. This is a really long live stream. This is why I always say you should be playing this at a higher speed. That's the last frame. All right, so let's go back. Let's go back to the beginning where we can see our mesh. Let's turn our mesh on. And what I'm going to do, and we did a little bit of this in our last video. Let's move the graph editor off screen so we don't have to look at that anymore. In the 3D room, because we have to do this in the 3D room. That's where these tools are. So I'm going to hit place. I've got the tracker selected. You can see that here in the hierarchy view. I've got this selected here. And I can, with the place button selected, I can just click and drag. And you can see the tracker like as I'm dragging it on the mesh. And I can just drag it right there on the corner of that mesh. Or I can say track, drop onto mesh. And it'll drop that right onto the mesh right there. So that'll be pretty good. I think though our mesh, oops, sorry, place should be turned off for this. I think our mesh is, darn it. Place needs to be off, so let's set that to navigate. Let's select our mesh again and make the size, I'm just gonna shrink it down a little bit so that it is, I think I just might have to do a little bit of adjustment to the mesh. Now, it's not gonna adjust, I'm not adjusting the object. You can see the object is not moving. I'm just adjusting the mesh. I'm just tweaking the mesh a little bit to be a little more centered. And I think it needs to be forward more. So W on the keyboard, let's move it forward a bit. If you hold on Control key, you get more control. No, you don't. That's not in this particular function. Anyway, you know what? I think that was all a bunch of overthinking. I think it's fine. It's fine. So I'm gonna go track. Just once again, drop onto mesh. The tracker is selected, drop onto mesh. You can see the what happens here is you get this little plus sign type thing, this little red dot, that's little crosshair kind of deal. That is the seed location for the tracker, and you'll see that it has also had a constraint applied, and that constraint is lock point. So let's go back to the windows here and say floating constraint points, and now we see we have a single constraint for our object. It is now constraining that point of our box to that tracker. Now what does that mean? So now when we go into the GeoH track room, and we select the object. Now, when we turn off, we're gonna go back to frame 0 because these are all keyframeable. Like if you deselect this on frame 20, that's when it's going to activate that lock or deactivate that lock. So let's make X active, let's make Z active. And that's it. I'm not gonna do any rotations or anything. Just on the X and Z plane, let's line up that mesh to this tracker. And let's go to the, yeah, that's it. That's all we're gonna do. Let's hit the 8 key here and, actually, sorry, right click on Pan 2D and that'll make that full screen. And now I'm just gonna hold down the D key and just track forward. And there's our box. And it's just moving. And it's using the 2D tracker to drive the box. Now, you remember when I did those by hand keyframes? Yeah, there you go. So that's a problem. And so I've been asking for this for years and years. I want a mode in the GeoH tracker that is always solving. What that would allow me to do is to select my 2D tracker here, and because it's in by hand mode, tweak it into position in situ, watch it on screen, and watch my mesh be in the right place. Now, I could turn off the tracker here, I guess. Like I could turn off the, I could relock the X and Y, like right on, we'll say this frame. We'll say X and Y, or X and Z are now locked. Actually, that's not what we want to do. Let's, hold on. I have to think about this. I'm going to hit key here. So it's going to make keyframes on X and Z, and then I'm going to lock them. Okay, so there, I've locked them. Now, when we get to here, I can unlock them, and I can say key, and it'll make a keyframe there. So now, if I go back, and because I'm not always solving, I have to track through that area. So I have, you see my joints and locks are locked on the X and Z, so they're not solving there. They're just keyframing. And there's no solver, like there's no go button when you're GeoH tracking. I've said that many times. You have to play through. So the play button becomes your solver. And then you can, basically move the guy, and then you reactivate the locks. So, and then when we get to here, and now our keyframes are, the keyframe tracker by hand, it's all wrong. It's completely wrong. And if we look at it from the top view, look at what it's doing. That's bananas. So let's go here to this. And now, as we track forward, we're going to make a keyframe here. We'll relock X and Z. Go forward, go forward, go forward, go forward, until we see there that the tracker is going to be back. There's probably a better view for this. We could do I should make a new layout where the camera, you can see the camera view, the perspective view, and possibly the top left, and maybe I'll show that next time too. But now, if I unlock X and Z, hey, it pops into place. I can make a keyframe there for it again. And then if I go back to the previous frame, okay, good. Now I'm just playing forward. Now I'm holding down the D key to play forward. I already tapped the space bar. And oh, look there. Now we've gotten it back, and it is just tracking. So let's zoom out a bit. Pan 2D lock. Let's zoom out a bit. So just so we can see, and with the GeoH track toolbar, it's not going to be in the way. But there you go. That is how you do this kind of thing. Now, we're only solving the X and Z, so you're going to see a lot of high frequency noise in here, because we do need to be solving for any up down bumps that might be happening. We need to be solving for any tilt, which does happen. But for that, we need more 2D trackers. But this is the basics of GeoH solving within the space of a moving camera on a plane that you calculated from the camera solve. So that works pretty well. Let me go back to view and say frame by frame. Let's set it to normal speed. because we don't want it playing at like 60 frames per second. But yeah, there you go. That's it. That's all I have for you today. I know it was a long time to get here, but I really wanted to cover everything. I wanted to cover all the important things. You know, we can talk about in the future, we can talk about how do you get rid of this high frequency noise, and, you know, how can you make the track better. But this is how you use 2D trackers to drive the GeoH tracker, by pinning and using constraints. My dream, this has always been my dream, that I can then have a whole rig with bones, which are basically objects in SynthEyes, and then I can use hand keyframed 2D trackers to do rotamation. But for that, you need an always solving mode. So when you make an adjustment to the 2D tracker here, let's go to the trackers room. If I grab this 2D tracker, which is it in by hand mode here? No. Let's go to a place where it is. If I grab this tracker, let's unlock it. If I grab this tracker here and I start moving it around, the object would update in real time. And it's not going to do that anyway now, because I've hand keyframed going through using these awkward tools. These are awkward. Like, if you have to use these spinners to do animation, oh brother, now we're in trouble. And there are other, you know, you can use tools like the adjust rig tool, but all that's like even more complicated than this. But GeoH tracking, once you understand the concept of, if I put a pin on this, it will always try to lock to that point. That's just gonna make everything, and you can control on what axes you want that to happen. That's it. That's all I've got. Nobody had any questions for me. The average view duration has been 8 minutes and 29 seconds. I can't blame you, because this is very long. But I will come back and I will talk about this more. I'm gonna go maybe make dinner now. So I guess that's it. So we'll talk soon. Bye.